Assalamu
Assalamu
alaikum. How is everyone doing? Hope everyone's doing fine. Welcome to the second edition of our podcast. So my name's Osman and this is Haroon. So Haroon, what are we going to talk about today?
So today's a really important one. So let's just firstly summarize pretty much what we discussed in video number 1.
Yeah.
So podcast number 1 was really more about kind of, especially those of you who don't know who we are, it was about really just connecting with us, our journey, and just understanding where we've gone and where we are now, so that you can learn the lessons and hopefully get some motivation in terms of going forward with your own journey in terms of the area of business, right? And then there was 2 core things that I wanted you to take from video number 1, podcast number 1, which is number 1 was about having the right mindset of focusing more towards what Allah wants and focusing towards your hereafter more than focusing on just building this worldly life, right? And I mentioned about a hadith where it's mentioned that those people that and I was paraphrasing it, I'm going to paraphrase it now, more to focus and they make their sole focus just this dunya, they're going to go through anxiety, stress, depression, you name it, right? Whereas those people that focus more towards the akhirah, Allah will give them the dunya as well, right? No matter what their situation is, they'll be at content, they'll be at peace, they'll be satisfied. So when it comes down to being an entrepreneur, there's a difference between just being an entrepreneur and a Muslim entrepreneur, and that is a framework that we want to use this and making money as a means for good for our family, our life, and also once we've made enough money, we can use that for the positive of the world, right? So a lot of people feel that money is a bad thing and they can use it for a bad thing, whereas we want to have the mindset of what we use it for good, right? Second thing is that I wanted to take is, what is the success formula, right? If you want to be successful in business in any area of your life, number 1, you need to make a decision that this is what I want. I want to achieve this. I want time freedom. I want my own business. I want to make £1 million. Number 2 is you need to have the right blueprint, okay? And the way you're going to get the right blueprint for success is investing in your learning, in a mentor, getting the right support. And this is something you can even message us if you want to get our support. If not, find somebody that you can learn from that has the results that you want, so they can show you the step-by-step process and the guidelines and the journey that you need to take for you to get the results that they've already achieved and to fast track yourself in that process. And number 3 is taking consistent massive action, right? Like, people can have a motivation, I want to be successful, try it out for a week, give up after 1 week or 1 month. But really, those people that I've seen successful, no matter what roller coaster they go through, they take consistent, regular action until they get the results they want, right? So in this podcast today, the question was now about not what business to do or how to do business. There's something more important than that question, right? Yeah. And that question is, who do you need to be for you to be able to be successful in business? It's not necessarily the business. It's not the strategy. It's the individual that is going to be the main important factor of whether you're going to succeed or not, right? And I'll give an example. When you go to university, you've got a class, right? And, or school or whatever it is. And when you're doing your exams, you get people that get A's, B's and C's. Yeah. Okay. Now, in that scenario, how do you become an A player? Okay. Now, for me, and I believe I shared this in the previous podcast, I was somebody that was always on D's, E's and F's. I was the lowest performance person, and I became the somebody that performs at the highest level, okay? And I honestly believe anybody that's successful is self-made, okay? They have to go through a journey and they have to go through experience where they build themselves up to be a certain type of person with certain habits, qualities, mindsets that facilitates them for them to be able to get the results that they can in life, right? And this is what most people that do not succeed, they don't have that. Okay? And that for me is really, like, if you asked 100 people to go and start a business, you gave them the best strategy, the best plan. Out of that 100 people, majority will fail. Some might do all right, and then there'll be these apex entrepreneurs at the top of the game that will succeed. And I believe that what we're going to be sharing in terms of what those qualities are, that is what the high performers do. So this is really about how can you build yourself to become that high performer, to be at the head of the game, so that you actually go and succeed in whatever goals that you want to achieve. Does that make sense?
Brilliant. I think one thing just to add on that, I think for me, like, everyone wants to become a millionaire, right? But what do you need to be as a person to become that millionaire? What kind of mentality do you need to have to become that millionaire? Like, loads of people have a millionaire kind of hope, but they don't have a millionaire behavior. And I think that's what we're going to be discussing today, is like, how do we get to that point? How do we wire ourselves? How do we move ourselves to get to that particular point? So great. Fantastic.
Yeah. So let's jump into the journey. I think first things first, I think, and the whole point of this podcast, once again, is about getting you in a position where you're using this podcast as your own mentor, your own kind of support behind you and some guidelines of what you need to do, right? And I'm assuming you're mostly in a position where you want to go on the journey to become successful, right? So I would say, look, the first things first that needs to be done is you need to have a reboot of your mindset, because who you are right now and the processes, your brain and your processes and systems and your way of life and your habits is, as a result, what you're getting in your life right now. Okay, so whatever results you're getting in your life right now it's anchored to who you are right now. Okay, so to take you to that next level, to take you to a higher level, it's now about rebooting your system and stepping up into a newer identity. Okay. And I think the first thing that needs to be done is a mental reboot. Okay. And everything that we're kind of going through, we've gone through this journey ourselves, right? So what I mean by mental reboot is, like, if you've got like a laptop or a computer, over a period of time, it becomes very slow and sluggish, right? And it's got viruses and it's got all these problems and issues, yeah? So what needs to happen to that computer is, number one, it needs to be rebooted. It needs to be wiped out of all the rubbish that's clogging it up. And at the same time, it needs to be updated with newer, higher processing systems so that it can perform at a higher level, right? At an upgraded level. So how do we do that to our own brains? Now, for me, when we look at our life, the brain, I see a bit like a computer, right? So what happens in our life is that we've all gone through our own journey, and we've gone through an experience where we create beliefs about ourselves, okay? And when we create those beliefs about ourselves, what that happens is that becomes our reality, okay? And those realities actually stop us from succeeding without us even knowing. Okay, without us even knowing, right? So let me give you an example. For example, let's say there's a couple, and this couple is married, but the husband is very aggressive and abusive, and he beats his wife, right? Now, what happens is that experience for the lady creates a belief in her mind that marriage can be dangerous, or men can be dangerous, or or it could be, she's not safe, okay? And all these beliefs about marriage, about men, and whatever the case is, right? And what happens is she then starts it creates a filter over her eyes, and that's how she sees her worldview. So for example, if she then has a divorce and then goes and gets married again, that new person that she's speaking to isn't going to be from a clear canvas, a clear plain mindset. It's within those beliefs that this person here could be potentially a dangerous person, right? This person could potentially harm me physically and whatever, cause me pain. So she's going to interact with that individual based on that certain way, right? So that's just an example. And when I was going through my journey, I was personally having some of these experiences. So for example, as a child, I remember going to school, and I remember, for example, wanting to go and select some books that were like, very high level books. And I was stopped by the teacher and told that you can't select these books because you're not on that level. Okay. And that created a belief for me that I'm not good enough. Okay. Now that was and I've seen people, for example, imagine, and I've known people that at school, they've put their hand up to answer a question, really excited. I know the answer, and they give an answer and the whole class starts laughing. So that creates a belief that I'm stupid, right? And that I know somebody that literally had that with them, that whenever even they went to a job interview, like they worked in a job environment, and the manager came and said, look, who knows this answer, they wouldn't put their hand up just because of that incident that happened as a child, right? Of feeling foolish about them. Like, have you ever gone through anything for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you were talking about marriage, literally my issues, as you know, like trying to find a wife, and you realize that for me, the reason why is I had such a backwards view on marriage.
Okay.
As you know, like for me, like growing up, my mum, she had a very, very tumultuous marriage. Well, she married twice. First one was very tumultuous. Second one was probably even worse. I had to experience domestic violence, from my end. And then, then for me, like, then going through the quest of, let's say, finding a spouse was such a challenge for me because there was that blockage. There was that emotional blockage, and it took me a while to really find out why that's there. And yet, and what it was is there was a belief in my head that marriages are dangerous. And marriages are, even though like I'm seeing a woman going through the abuse, but as a male, I still felt that because of what I experienced, marriages are going to break. They break up and they get destroyed. And so basically, there was this kind of like filter inside me, and this kind of like subconscious mechanism that would basically reject any opportunity, or basically would basically shy away from finding someone. And I remember you famously telling me, like, what's going on? Why aren't you finding someone?
Sort your life out.
And it was just that block, and then I think...
And was it like a subconscious block, you think?
Oh, it was definitely a subconscious block.
You didn't
know. It's like a blind spot. You don't even know that it's there.
Yeah.
Until you kind of like shine the light on it.
Got it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So like, what I want to do is also like, that's a really good example in your life. That is something so important, and it was a blind spot. What else have you gone through where you've had a blind spot in business, right? So let's kind of take this concept and look at business.
Yeah.
What blind spots have you had where it's affected you from a business perspective?
Blind spots that affected me from a business perspective,
or even getting into business or whatever it is.
I would say for me, in terms of blind spot, in terms of getting into business in the beginning, I think for me it was just it's that personal belief in myself. Like for me, I never had this, like I had this thinking in my head that no matter what I get involved in, it's going to get destroyed at some point. I'm going to fail. It's going to fail at some point. And then I hark back why. It's kind of similar to you, because I got bullied when I was young, when I was in like primary school. And I remember very, very well, enthusiastically sometimes putting my hand up, like you said, and giving the wrong answers, and loads of kids laughing. I'm getting humiliated. And then the teacher not really backing you, and you're kind of like on your own. And so that what did that do? Build that subconscious in my head that everything that I even like enthusiastically try to do, I'll get humiliated by it. And so basically that was my big thing, like, and that's where like I'm trying to find different avenues to get me to a point where, without realizing the issue, not the issue, but the thing to work on is myself. So I think that was probably the big thing.
I think for me it's very similar in the sense that because I felt so much in my life and never really had built myself an ego or confidence in anything, I just felt I was never good enough at anything. And I think definitely like when you have those filters around you and you try to do something, because that belief is there that I'm not good enough, I'm not likable, I'm not lovable, I'm not being able to achieve at a good level, that result, that your actions are based upon those beliefs, right? So I think and whenever you've got a scenario where something's not working, there's always a hidden blind spot there. Okay. And I remember like sometimes like when I would go for like a break on the weekend, to the gym or swimming or whatever, I sometimes just sit down, and if I'm feeling negative about something, like I can sense something's not quite right in my body, in my mind. So when I give myself that space to think, what is it? I actually find out it's something, and I'm like, now I know exactly why I'm feeling that way, right? So there's always a blind spot that's there that comes about from that point of view. Now, from a business perspective, I think the people that we speak to, I think their number one blind spot is the fact that They don't feel that they can succeed. They don't have confidence in themselves. They feel that the world is, a scam. They feel they've got all, and they, because they've had some negative experience from the past. So they've got all these mental experiences that have resulted from experience they've had in their life, and that is now filtered down, so that when they come to us, they're coming from a mindset of, number one, I'm not going to be able to succeed with this anyway. It's too good to be true. It's probably a scam. Even if it's not, and I try to do it, I probably won't be good enough at it. I'm never going to be able to get these results that these other students have done.
Yeah.
And so I think the first thing, and just to conclude this point, unless you want to add to it before we go to the next point, is you have to divorce yourself from the past, right? 100%. If you're going now on a journey that you want to set up a business and you want to take your life to the next level, divorce yourself from everything you've gone through in the past. And when it shows up, it's going to show up at different points, but you've got to mentally be able to say, okay, now I understand why I'm thinking that way. Okay. And when you feel like, okay, I'm saying this is because I have this belief, which is actually a result of this that happened to me when I was a child, then you realize, okay, now I understand how my brain's working, right? Then you start when you start having this power to uncover your blind spots, then that gives you a power to then start controlling your brain rather than your brain controlling you, right? So I would say, look, you want to start off to understand that your brain is a story making machine. It will make stories about everything and anything, but it doesn't mean it's true, right? Like there's a story about, marriages not being safe, about we're not good enough, about we're failures, that people are going to laugh at us, you're never going to succeed, all that stuff. We've destroyed all of those negative beliefs. Like we've had to fight through those. And the only way to really destroy those negative beliefs is by taking action that is going to be contradictory to what that belief is. Yeah, exactly. Right? So before we go into that, after the reset, was there anything else you wanted to add or?
No, not really. Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I think for me, now that, you've got an understanding of the mental reboot, I think also what you've got, I think one of the things that is important is you divorce yourself from the opinions of other people, right? Whether it be good or bad. And for me personally, I remember when I was working in an organization and even in business, when I started getting good results in business, it was all about trying to look good and impress other people, right? And that was a big issue for me as a young guy. Like I always had an authority above me that was older, more mature, more successful. And I was always trying to impress and so forth that individual. And now if I was to look at myself and, be able to speak to that young person, I would say, look, just forget about whatever everyone thinks of you. Like it doesn't matter. Yeah. Whether good or bad, you've got to learn to divorce yourself from your own mental blockages and also what you may think, what other people may think of you. You just divorce yourself from, just stop caring. And it's very hard. It's easy to say, but it's just about checking yourself, right? It's about, am I concerned whether this person thinks I'm good or not, right? Or if I've achieved good or not. And if that's the case, then just let it go. Like, who cares whether they think you're good or bad? You have to be able to be strong enough now to step up saying, I'm on my vision. Okay, I'm going to go down my own path and I'm not going to care the good or the bad. Even the good, like if people praise you, like you've got to be able to be in a position where that doesn't affect you either, right? Because praise is nice, but you got to be able to do it for yourself in a way that if the negative comes, which it will come, that doesn't affect you. And the only way to get that is when you're not in a position where you really have to, you're not subservient to other people's opinions. Your emotions are not connected to that. Do you see? So divorce yourself from any need, divorce yourself from limiting beliefs and have a fresh canvas to now get started and get going, right? And what I would say is, now it's about what is your goal? Yeah, what is your game plan? What is it that you want to achieve? Right? Did you want to say something before I go into that?
No, I think in terms of trying to get approval from others, I really, for me, from a personal point of view, I think this is such a big thing with society as a whole. Yeah. I think every single one of us, to a certain degree, suffers from this. Suffers from this kind of need for approval. And really when that doesn't come, then it just kind of damages us in so many ways. So I think it's very, very important for everyone to understand that, look, is it's not really about how others see you. The most important thing is what vision are you going towards, and where are you seeing yourself, and that's the most important thing, rather than how do you want others to see you. So yeah, that's just
I think, to be personally, my journey is a bit different in the sense that I was very extreme in this point. Like it was like a subconscious blind spot, which is always trying to, impress somebody, right? And just that thing to be liked type of thing. And I remember even in a position where, I was very successful. I was in a position where I was, I could post on social media, look, I'm with a Lamborghini or this, that, and the other. It was all a show for me to feel good about my own ego. Do you see? So for me, like when I went through that business project that didn't go well, and it basically crashed down because of the dispute those partners had. I've shared this in another video, and I think I mentioned this in the last podcast as well. Because I had a crash in business and it didn't go well, there was people that were out there that were part of that project that went online, created content, negative content, and then those people that were involved saw that negatively, and then they started seeing me as in a negative light, and even like commenting bad things about me or saying bad things or whatever it was, what it might be. And to be honest, that was the biggest benefit. Not benefit. That was what I see that as like, when you take a medicine, a bitter pill or whatever the quote is, right? Like something that you have to have that you don't like, but it heals you from an illness that you have. By me having a period of time where there was so much negativity towards me at that time, allowed me to build a position where I just stopped caring about people's opinions, whether it would be good and bad. And that really was a huge benefit, right? So anyway, that's fine. So point being is that when you divorce yourself from the past, I think Anthony Robbins says the past does not equal the future. No matter what you've gone through in life, in the past, it doesn't mean your future is going to be the same, right? The thing is now it's about stepping up to say, what do I want to achieve? Okay. And one thing I personally feel that has worked for me is, instead of thinking 3 years down the line, 10 years down the line, focus on the next month, right? Focus on this next month. What is my goal? What is my output? I don't even focus on the next year anymore, because that gives me anxiety, right? Because if things don't go to plan, which it never does, then I'm like, oh man, this is not, whatever, right?
Speaking of that, there was this quote, I was going to send it to you. I was in a cafe the other day and I was doing my work, and they had a board there, and it said, how many of us have made 5-year goals and realize in those 5 years that goal has never happened? It's like we always try to do some kind of long-term goal. When we hit those 5 years, things look totally different than what we imagined, you know? So like you said, I think it's important to have those kind of very near distant goals that like you can almost feel it, it's tangible, and you can strive towards it and then build upon that.
I think it's like you can have a vision, you can have a dream, like I want to get this car, this house, or whatever it might be. But I think it's about, for you to, like, what happens is people go so far forward in terms of their visions, is that it gives them a reason to be lazy on their actions. Right? So like this next month, like instead of saying I want to make 100k, okay, or whatever it is that their goals or your goals may be, it's about, what is my financial goal, or what is the output that I want to achieve? What is the one output? And then you need to have a game plan. Okay, you need to have a war plan that you're going to go after, right? Like for me, like this next month's about to start, I have a war plan. I know exactly what I'm going to do, what is the output, what are the challenges I might need to resolve, but I've got clarity in the next month on what I need to achieve, right? So for you, those of you that are in a position where either you have a business or looking to start one, you need to have a plan in place, okay? Either you've got a plan, either you've got a business and it's about, okay, look, I'm going to launch 30 products this month. I know exactly what I need to do. I'm going to do this X, Y, and Z. That is my output, right? And the goal is for this month is to get to 10K within the month in sales, right? Or if you are in a position where you have no business at all, then, contact us, let us know, and we'll work with you on getting a game plan in position, right? There might be a link at the bottom of this video, for example, yeah? So, point being is you need a game plan, okay? Now, once you've got a game plan, okay, you've divorced your filters and your blind spots away from this game plan, because those blind spots are going to come and say, and it's like waswasa, right? You're not good enough. You're not going to be able to do you remember that other time when you tried to create a goal and a plan and this happened and then your husband or wife comes and say, what are you creating a business plan? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Blah blah blah. Yeah. So point being is, one thing I've realized, that when you step up in the world to do something, you're gonna face, what's the word, like you're gonna a bit of pushback. The world's gonna push you, negativity. Not even negative, but the world is gonna push you back in one way or another, where it's gonna stop you. It might be a family member, it might be your own mind, it might be you'll get ill. Something's gonna happen. That's kind of resistance. That's the word that I was looking for. You're gonna face resistance when you're going to war on your dreams and what you want to achieve. You're gonna face some resistance. Right?
You'll face resistance with yourself.
You will, of course. Yeah.
I think that's probably the biggest thing. That I think when you make genuine change, and that's a good thing, because the resistance, for me, is when the resistance comes from yourself, it shows the light. It shines the light of that kind of like subconscious that's been there. So it's actually a positive thing. But that's the way I see it from my experience. It's not always going to be resistance from others, which is fair enough. It's mainly resistance from yourself. And it's about battling through that.
Exactly. So 100% agree. From that perspective, right, you're gonna get your game plan. Now the question is how are you gonna execute? Are you gonna execute with peak performance, or are you gonna execute it in a lazy way that you're not gonna be successful with, right? So from my experience, there's a few key things that, like I said, you're transforming from your current self into a high performer, right? And there is certain characteristics and habits and mindsets and way of life that those people that perform their best have, right? And there's some key things for me that I would say is definitely important that we need to organize for us to get the most out of our life, okay? And the way I see it is we're minutes and hours and days, okay? So within, everyone has got the same 24 hours. How do we get the most out of that time that we've been gifted with, okay? So the way I see is, number one, there's a mind, okay? There's the body and there's the soul, you can say, right? From a mind perspective, I think daily you need to, like, when you're out to succeed something, it needs to become it has to become an obsession that you think about every day, right? You need to be in a position where every day you're writing your goals out. Every day you're making dua for your goals, right? It needs to internalize like it's a matter of life and death, So from a mind perspective, like, you're going to get clogged with mind. You need to be going out for walks, right? You need to be having breaks, go to the gym, have that mindset where you start battling that mind and really make sure that your mind is in a very sharp position, right? Second, in terms of your body, and it's like a car, right? You're like a Formula 1 car. You're not going to fill it in with mud, not petrol. You need the best for it, right? And I would say, in my experience, number one, the most important thing is your sleep, okay? Do you want to give some insight on the sleep side, or do you want?
For me,
go for it. What's your experience with sleep?
You know what? If I'm going to be honest with you, sleep has been a challenge for me. It's improving. Here's one thing. In the past, there have been some situations where I've met some people, and they've come to me and they said, for you to be successful, you need to be team no sleep. As in, you need to have no sleep, so that you can make sure that you're making the most out of the 24 hours.
5 o'clock club and all that.
3 o'clock, whatever nonsense, right? And then people, I've only had 2 hours sleep, and then you just look at their faces, and I'm like, you look destroyed. You look destroyed. And I think for me, then I realized, as a matter of fact, people who have genuine success, they have optimal sleep. They optimize their sleep. And I realized that for you to really become, for you to optimize yourself on a daily basis, that sleep is so important. Because what does that do? That refreshes your mind. That makes sure that you are now on optimal level. So compared to someone who maybe has only 3 hours sleep, compared to someone who has 8 hours full optimal sleep, that person's ability to work on a day is like 10x compared to that person who hasn't had the sleep. And so basically, you know, I know that's a big weak point of mine. So what I do is I'm really working hard on making sure that I'm monitoring my sleep. Using apps, monitoring them, making sure that I'm understanding what are my sleep patterns, what do I need to do. Like, for example, this next to me, it's a no-go. It has to be somewhere else, for example.
Why?
Because, you know, you've got the light that emanates from this, you know, it does play that trick in the mind, but also, you know, you just want to like use the phone, you know. So what are the kind of like actions that you do on before you sleep? That's very, very important, you know. Like, is there anything you want to share on that? Yeah,
100%. Like, I think I agree with you in the terms of that you need to give your body the sleep it needs, right? And I've seen people that they can, you know, go without much sleep, but they're very far and few between to find those type of people. I think majority of the people, they need a good sleep, and everyone's different. Like like we've discussed this, my sleeping pattern and yours is very different, right? So, but I realized that I need to, I don't, you know, if I want to wake up at 5 o'clock, sleep at 10. Do you see my point, right? Sleep earlier, not shorten the amount of sleep. So I use an app called Sleep Cycle. I put my phone on the side and then I can track exactly how my sleep is and the hours, so I can see where the weak points is and I can develop. So I definitely suggest download Sleep Cycle, test it out, and make sure that you're getting, you know, above 90% on your sleep aspect, right?
Another thing I would probably suggest is figure out what kind of person you are. So there's some people who are like evening owls, and there's some people who are like morning people. So I think for me, like, this is where we're slightly different. I'm more of an evening person. So I will, my mind is more sharper later on during the day. And so basically, how do you adjust yourself to that pattern? And you're probably like, the way I feel
in the morning,
you're kind of like the opposite.
I can't do anything in the evening.
There you go. So that's why I beat you a lot in FIFA.
No, he doesn't.
So the evening. So I think that's the key as well, is figuring that out. And there are resources out there to just figure out what kind of person you are. And I think that's important as well. And then from there, you can really optimize your activity on a daily basis and optimize your sleep on a daily basis.
No, I agree. So I think the main thing is, what I would say is try to sleep early, unless your pattern's different. Like, if you're getting less sleep, that is number one thing. Like that you allowing your body to have 8 hours sleep will change your life if you're not already on that. Second thing is your eating. Eating wise, again, like, if you're filling your body with rubbish, you're going to perform rubbish, right? And I've realized that it's all about sharpening the mind, right? And for me, like, one thing that's helped is intermittent fasting, not eating in the morning. And if you search intermittent fasting, like, it's just like, you know, you have a longer period of time of not eating in the morning. You can have like a little tea or coffee or whatever. Sometimes I have fruits, but you know, when you eat so much, you feel lethargic and your brain fog. The less I eat in the morning, then I feel sharper, right? And if I do have breakfast, I've tried to have more healthy food that my body's able to do. Do you see it, right? And you just got to have a healthy diet. Like, I know you've been working on this. Do you want to share some insights?
Yeah, I think for me, that's another thing that if I look at me in terms of my body and my body weight, this is another situation that I can see where there's been blind spots, and it's all subconscious. And it's happened through time. It's all subconscious. It's happened through time, and then being kind of like ashamed with it. But now, I don't care. Like, I'll tell people what I'm involved in. I'm involved in this thing called Slimming World. It's helped me a lot. Like, I've dropped.
Yeah, you've lost a lot.
I'm still got a long. As you can see, a long way to go.
But it takes time.
It takes time.
What you've done is amazing.
And I think what you said is the key here is really understanding what you're consuming on a daily basis. Like, for example, one of the biggest things that really can mess you up is sugar. You know, that you know, the amount of sugar that you intake on a daily basis has a big effect on your optimal levels. You know, so that's really, really key for you. But that's another thing to really look into is your eating habits. You know, how are they optimized?
You got to track it, basically.
Exactly.
Like what I actually do is, like, I like one thing is important is drinking a lot more water, right? And another thing is that eat simple food. Like have it simple. I know I can eat the same thing every single day, right? Especially for lunch, especially my working hours, because I know my body, what it's used to, what it can perform at its peak level. I know exactly what I need to eat. Very simple food that fills me and gives me the nutrition. Whereas I know if I have like heavy pasta or cheese and stuff like that, I can't work. My brain is done. Like I'm tanked. So you've got to learn to understand your body and what you eat and how different foods affect you. And one thing is really important is speak to the doctors. Okay, I'm gonna
get a blood test.
Get a blood test. Okay, you'll see why you're laughing in a minute. So it's really important to get a blood test. Call the doctors, especially if you're not in your feeling 100%. Say look, like I remember a good period of time is after Ramadan last year. I was down and out. I couldn't work. I was just lethargic every day. I went to somebody's house. I was sleeping, right? Yeah. And I called the doctors. I was like, look, I'm too tired. What's the issue? Got a blood test done and they say your vitamin D level is way too low, right? Got that fixed. I'm back in the zone. Yeah. So we're laughing because I've been telling, we've got he had agreement with his mum that he's going to get a blood test, right? And he's been, he's got one tomorrow, which he's going to miss again. Yeah. Long story. We'll leave it.
I might not miss it.
You won't miss it. You won't miss it because you're here. Anyway, so point being is that, look at that. Another thing is, for example, some people they're not used to certain type of foods that they can't eat it, that it doesn't go well with their body, and if they have it, it becomes lethargic. I don't know. Like, I know cheese and stuff like that for me or like heavy pasta and stuff. So we like when I'm working, I eat clean and I eat lean, so I know my body can function. I'm sharp, right? So I would say number one is your what was I saying? Your sleeping, eating, and I think exercise is important as well. Like a lot of people, and I've realized it myself, like when you're working so much on the desk, sitting down, you're not getting enough blood flow in your body. You need to go out for walks, brisk walk, start going to the gym, do something physical that is going to get your blood pumping, even if it's press ups in the morning, right? It will keep your body at an optimal level, right? And that's what would really give you that energy and that drive. So I would say, like, for you we need to understand there's the mind. You need to keep your mind sharp mentally to let go of all the drama and nonsense and really keep focus on your game plan and really mentally just manage that so you understand what you do. You've got a game plan and you're attacking it every day with consistency. But for you to get the most out of that game plan and the time allocated is number one is make sure your body is in the right place. You're eating healthy, you're sleeping well, you're good exercising, and these are basic things we all know, but it makes a massive difference as an output, right? Yeah. And another thing is that now once you're in that position, I think it's really important to focus your time properly, right? Allocate your time, focus on your task, stop, going on like social media at the same time, messing around with this, doing that. Give your 100% focus. It's called deep work. Where you're so focused on that task and you complete that task. Like there's been times where I'm sitting down for 8 hours, and if you look at the output that I've done in that time is maybe half an hour of work, right? Whereas there's times where I do deep work for a whole day and I've completed enough work that literally people take weeks to complete, right? Massive difference. So number one is I think you need to have really powerful focus and learn how to focus on one thing and really be sharp in that time and get that done. And also I think it's important to play by your strengths, right? Put your time, like I know my speciality is putting time into launching and growing and marketing campaigns. I can't sit there doing finances and data and all that, right? Data mine, but finance is not my thing, stuff like that. So you got to learn to play with your strength and focus your time on those things to grow, Did you want to
I think one thing as well, just to add on that, is figure out what kind of person you are. So there's like different surveys that you can do. Like for example, the kind of person I am a INFP. I don't know if you know what that means. So basically introvert, but also kind of like a very, how do I put it, imaginative person. So there's some strengths and there's weaknesses to that. The strength to that is, I can come up with ideas. I can take the lead on things. I can inspire people. I can push people and really, push them to succeed and really, do well. One of my weaknesses is I float. is I'll float here and I'll float there. And so basically, it's figuring out that and how to hone in on that. So that's another thing to figure out, like figuring out what kind of person you are in terms of sleep, figuring out what kind of optimal things you can do in terms of your diet, and also what kind of character, what kind of person you are, and align yourself to that role. Like, for example, you're not someone who will enjoy working on finance, but you love to build businesses. You love to build the sales, you know. So I think that's the big key to figuring out. And I think another thing I would say is, like, in terms of working on a daily basis, I think one thing that's helped me is doing hour chunks and bursting through those hours and knowing each hour what I'm doing. And I think one thing I suffered with before is my organization. Sometimes things were scattered everywhere, but now what I'm doing is making sure, like, for example, when I'm doing a certain task, all windows, all tabs are closed apart from the ones that are important to me.
Minimalist lifestyle.
Minimalist.
Yeah.
And one thing I realized, there's one I'm actually helping a particular client with this, because I remember I was like helping this client to launch a campaign, and so I asked him to share my screen, and his tabs were just like crazy, and what it was is like there were tabs of the same thing as well, and I was like, bro, okay, after this call I'm gonna help you on this. Okay, really, I want to help, because I'm doing it myself. I'm gonna help you to keep things minimal, and now it's very easy, it's very clean for him, and he's able to now navigate, you know. And I think that's very, very important.
I agree. Like, you got to have a clutter-free life, you know. Try to have a more minimalist, even on your like phone and stuff. Like, just, you know, distractions are there, right? You need to be able to take distractions away for you to really have that sharp mind, right? Anyway, so I think, look, coming to end, just to kind of summarize this podcast for this month, you know, it's about becoming self-made, right? There is a version of yourself that is a high performance version of yourself, and really to do that and get to that point, number one, you've got to divorce yourself from the past in terms of what you've gone through and whatnot, and, you know, be able to pick up and have emotional intelligence on when, you know, your limiting beliefs are holding you back, and be able to manage that and address that, and realize that is actually not a reality, whatever belief it is that is limiting you that you've developed. Second thing is getting you in a position where you really don't care about people's opinions. You know your path. You know, you're not there for approval. You're there to chase your dreams and achieve something for yourself, right? Number three is, once you've kind of have a clean canvas, have a goal, have a game plan, put a plan in position that, on a monthly basis, that you go in and execute. And number four is that while you're executing, make sure that you are, as an individual, optimizing yourself to get the most out of it. Make sure that, you know, you're sleeping well, make sure you're eating well, make sure you're exercising, get a blood test done, understand your body, what's working, what's not. Take away clutter, take away distractions, and look at where you're putting your time and your energy towards, so that when you're working, you're able to do that deep, focused, quality work. And I'm telling you, by just doing this, you're going to be ahead of 99% of other entrepreneurs out there, because they are facing the problems that we've mentioned, and they're not performing at their highest levels. Those people that perform at their highest levels, they optimize themselves as entrepreneurs, and with time, while you're executing on your plan and you're achieving so much, you start then realizing how much you're doing. That builds more confidence. That gives you a belief on what you can achieve. That belief turns into a new identity, not that something that you're faking, but that you're developing into, of somebody who is confident about themselves and happy with their life and really just out there crushing it, right? And that is where you see somebody that has achieved so much in life, and you just see, wow, this person is self-made, but you don't understand their weaknesses, their drama they've gone through, their challenges, their problems. They were self-made. They went through the journey, and that's how they became who they are. And you need to go down that journey one way or another as well, as an entrepreneur. All right. So thank you so much. I think we're pretty much done for time.
I think so.
Hopefully you benefited a lot, and we've got some awesome stuff for you on our next episode number 3. So we'll see you there. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.